Just by way of brief history, about 4 or 5 years ago, I helped to start the first GodBlogCon conference. For those of you familiar with the history of Biola Digital, it basically started as a gathering of Christian bloggers here at Biola University. We actually met over there by the library courtyard, which was one of the newer buildings at the time. And the idea was this: let's get together as Christians and talk about what the internet was doing to media. And so guys like Joe Carter and Andrew Jackson, Hugh Hewitt, John Mark Reynolds, who is now leaving Biola to head out to Houston Baptist, but is the founder of the Torrey Honors Institute, and others came together and they started a conversation. The conversation has been going ever since 2006, so 6 years now. And for 3 of those 6 years, I played a leadership role, either directing the conference or leading the team of student workers who directed the conference. In 2009, we renamed the conference the Christian Web Conference, with the idea being that we had moved beyond the blogosphere, that significant changes had happened to the internet that were way beyond just blogging. And so we called it the Christian Web Conference, thinking that the internet was going to be the primary thing about which people would be concerned. And to a degree, this is actually the case. I would argue that it's true that the internet is a very important factor in shaping our conversations today. But what we didn't anticipate when we named the Christian Web Conference was the iPad. Because not only was the web shaping the conversation, it was also shaping the tools with which we had that conversation. And when you think about the iPad, I mean, the iPad was essentially created to be a content consumption mechanism exclusively for the web. Proof? Talk to anybody who has a Wi-Fi only iPad. I have to say, I made the decision to get a Wi-Fi only iPad because I was trying to get the least expensive iPad possible, and I regret it every freaking day, all right? Because without the internet, my iPad is all but useless. And so in 2012 here, Dave Bourgeois, who I'm sure most of you have heard of or met or seen at some point in this event, decided to take the conference over and rename it once more to Biola Digital, recognizing that whatever was going to happen, it was digital, and so let's have the conversation about digital influence. However, one thing hasn't changed since this conference began, and that is our concern with Christian dialogue and especially ministry. And so after I did GodBlogCon and then Christian Web Conference, I actually started up an app development company called the Delight Group. And the Delight Group is focused on making technology more delightful. That is, my big philosophical assumption with regards to technology is that those persons and organizations currently shaping and manipulating the web, think guys like Mark Zuckerberg, think guys like Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Steve Jobs while he was alive, and others, their primary interest is technological advancement, but there aren't that many people who are actually asking, how does this technology make us more human? That was a conversation that came directly out of GodBlogCon and out of the Christian Web Conference. But there was another side to it, and that is ministry. We think that ministry, as it's done and as it's carried out, has a human element, but now it has a very technological element. And so Dr. Bourgeois has brought me in as somebody who sat on the ministry side of the conversation, having worked with the Torrey Honors Institute and had conversations with organizations like Focus on the Family, Crossway, Family Research Council, Salem Web Communications, and others. But then also somebody who sat on the developer chair and said, okay, how do we actually build products that matter? How do we build products that impact people and can serve our clients well? So today I'm going to go through a series of apps that I think will help with ministry. And once we're done going through these apps, I'm going to open up the floor because I assume, how many of you here are like some sort of ministry leader, just out of curiosity? Okay, several of you. For those of you who aren't ministry leaders, what is your interest in this? Just real quick.
I'm an author.
You're an author? Okay. So content distribution?
A web developer.
Web developer? What's the name of your company?
Tucker Professional Web Services.
Tucker Professional Web Services. Okay, great. Good to know. Good to know you. There's always a group that can use a web developer.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just provide training for faculty of Hewitt University.
Okay, great, awesome. All right, well, I'm glad you guys are here. This is definitely targeted toward how ministries can use the web, but I think that all of you will be able to get something out of it. And we're going to start today with an organization called Ministry Ops. Just out of curiosity, I saw that Ministry Ops was here. Is there anyone from Ministry Ops that's here? No, okay. So Ministry Ops is here, and if you have a chance to go and meet them and get to know them, you should hunt them out. I don't know who they are. I just have been following the #Biola Digital Twitter hashtag. That's what it is if you're wanting to tweet this session. So Ministry Ops, it's an application and it's a website that enables you to take your media and upload it in about 3 steps to the internet and distribute it across all kinds of information platforms. Now, if you've ever tried to work with video and put it on the iPad or get it to a computer or embed it in a website, you know that this can be something of an arduous process. You know that trying to get all the right embed codes, trying to format for this device or that device can take a lot of time. That's man hours, that's volunteer hours, and it can be difficult. So what Ministry Ops does is they take your content and they put it through their own system and then they distribute it out however you need it done. This can be useful in a number of capacities in ministry. First of all, Sunday service. If you want to broadcast something, at a later date on a Sunday, for example, you record your pastor at 8 a.m. and you want to broadcast it at noon to a later service, you can do that. Youth gatherings. It's not uncommon to find churches or other ministries doing youth groups remotely abroad. So this service would let you send your signal to all of those different houses, to the different devices. People can be out at a cafe getting together and they can see your video. They can be watching it around their smartphones if they're not able to participate in whatever the group gathering is. Bible studies. I attended a large evangelical church down in the San Diego area that made really good use of a video series for their Bible study. Basically what would happen is you'd form little Bible groups, they'd get together, and then they had a series of messages delivered by the pastor to all the groups. It was a really good way to get the pastor's voice in the conversation and sort of give context to the Bible study conversation. And what I found was that for the people involved, it was very, very helpful to have that initial video context delivered by somebody who ostensibly has studied it at seminary, has thought a lot about whatever the message and whatever the big picture is and that sort of thing. So Ministry Ops is very useful for delivering that message. And at only $49 a month, it's very, very affordable. Now, I know some of you think that YouTube and other platforms like that do this sort of thing, and that's true. The difference is, one, if you look at YouTube, it's frankly, it's ugly to look at. Their player's kind of clunky. The video quality can be low quality. And for people who are in professional, who really care about that next level professional concern, you're going to find them not on YouTube, you're going to find them on Vimeo and other services. And so what Ministry Ops does is they put a lot of attention and time into the design of the thing so that you can have a really high quality presentation which builds immediate trust and authority. I think design in ministry is one of the most commonly overlooked things of all web development, and it needs to be fixed because design is a super critical part of your communication. You can find these people at operative.ministryops.com, and here's the best part. They're working with not only your standard platforms, iOS, Android, Windows Phone if you decided to go that way, if you decided to curse yourself. Roku, Apple TV are 2 other platforms that they're using. That's awesome. Getting on those next-gen television broadcast platforms, that's really the future. I personally have a Boxy Box and Apple TV connected to my television, my big screen, and it's a really easy way to stream the content. You can also do it, of course, to your PC or Mac. The next application is Square. I don't know if you guys have heard of Square, but Square is awesome, okay? Basically what Square lets you do is it's an app-based credit card processing platform. You get your iPhone, which I, of course, conveniently put on the opposite side of where I was standing. But you get your iPhone, you get a little device that plugs into your headphone jack, and you can swipe a credit card and have a sales transaction right from your iPhone. Now they've taken it to the next level and actually developed an iPad platform that lets you turn your iPad into a cash register, minus the cash. So you can have a cool little stand, you can have your iPad, you put your inventory on there if you're selling shirts, CDs, books, right? Think about how many ministry events you've been to that has the 6-foot table, the tablecloth, and all that stuff, and you're like, man, that's cool, and I love to pick that up. And all you have on you is your credit card because we're living in 2012, and that's all anyone has on them. And you look over, and there's the guy with the thing doing the right? You know what I'm talking about? And you know that if you want to buy anything from that table, even though you're stoked on it and you're ready to do it right now, you're ready to have the sale, you're going to have to sit down and fill out your personal information, write out your credit card, when it expires, what your address is, right? It's just a pain, and you move on. Square solves that problem, because now picture your same ministry table with all of your great products. You've spent a lot of time thinking about how to get those products there, how to get them shipped just in time for your event. Probably, if you're like me, you had them rush ordered because, let's face it, it's hard to sometimes get everything in on time. You don't know where you're going to be and how much you're going to need. So you've done all of that work, and now you have your iPad with your Square. Swipe. Square is free to have an account, and it's free to get the device. It's 2.75% transaction fee per swipe every time you run the card. But really, that's a small price to pay for what I would argue is going to be a big increase in your sales. Now, not only can you do Square for sales, but if you're a missionary, right? You go to a church, you've set up this event, you've thought about your presentation, you can raise funds right there. Just have your iPad ready and people can come and say, how do I contribute to you? You don't have to wait to send them a thing, although you should get their address. You don't have to hope that they're going to send you a check well after the enthusiasm's gone. Boom, Square it. Simple and easy. Square works with the iOS platform and the Android platform. You can find out more information about Square by visiting their website, which is squareup.com. YapTap. So what YapTap does is it streamlines the messaging distribution system. For ministries, I think communications is probably one of the single most difficult things to really wrap your head around, especially when people are on as many different devices as they're on, right? Here's the question. Do you send an email? Do you shoot people a tweet? What about a Facebook message? Some people only respond to text. So what do you use? Well, YapTap has all of those bases covered. And what I find especially exciting is the text messaging and Facebook integration, because if you're not on Facebook, you're probably responding to a text. The average turnaround time for the average individual using a text platform is about 2 seconds from receiving a text. Like, people respond to text like that. I'm not even that efficient with my emails, and I get a lot of emails in a day from my different businesses. And so the fact of the matter is, I get a text and I'm thinking about it immediately. My phone's vibrated, it's in my face, right? I even have it right now and I'm giving a talk. If someone were to text me, I would notice it while I'm talking to you. So for communications and operations, it's invaluable. It's also a pretty reasonable rate. At $10 a month for 500 members, and if you do an annual subscription, it's 10% off of that. I mean, it's really just an unbeatable price for a tremendously valuable communication platform. Now here's what's really cool about it. You can take people within the YapTap community. Let's say like you have 200 contacts, but 50 of those contacts is for your evening Bible study. Another 50 of those contacts is for your own business, your core team leadership. Well, YapTap allows you to organize people into groups and just be like, hey, send this out to group A, right? Just send this to the men's Bible study. Meeting time moved. We're going to go a half hour later. We're now at this location, right? Super easy. YapTap is available on the iOS and Android platforms. Ustream. Ustream, how many of you guys have heard of Ustream? All right, awesome. So one of the things I love about Ustream, it's a streaming, it's for video streaming. You could stream this event right now through Ustream if you wanted to. And you could do so for free if you're okay having lots of other content around whatever you're streaming. Ustream is a really good solution for people who want to do remote broadcasts, and here's why. Aside from doing the free streaming, which probably most of you have heard of, many of you may not have known that Ustream allows you to do pay-per-view. Do you guys know that? No. Yeah, so pay-per-view is awesome, because if a few years ago when I was at Biola University, we had this debate between Christopher Hitchens and William Lane Craig. You guys have probably heard of all those people. And it was a big debate. Like, we sold out our gym, we sold out this auditorium over here, we sold out like 3 auditoriums, and then we had millions of people watching over the course of the time watching the videos streamed. Now, to get a ticket to the event actually costs you money, and it should. It was expensive to bring these people out and do all the organization. I mean, Biola dropped tens of thousands of dollars into making the stage and doing all the logistical work needed to bring those guys out, to say nothing of the honorariums. So if your ministry is doing all of that work, well, you don't want people just like dropping onto the stream and getting it all for free necessarily. I mean, you should be able to raise some funds out of that if you think it's an event worth charging for. So what Ustream lets you do is it lets you set up a pay-per-view option where you can have a lockdown signal and opt in to watch a show. Now here's what it also will let you do. Let's assume that you want to produce content behind a paywall. That's where a lot of people are going these days, a lot of ministries, right? You're spending time and resources paying authors, video teams, and whoever else to produce content for your website. Well, you can work with Ustream to actually set up all the content behind a locked paywall so that only people with a subscription can see it. Super valuable. I happen to know a number of national radio syndications. You know, they now stream themselves doing their radio shows. A lot of them use Ustream. You can find Ustream at ustream.com. Their stuff works on the computer, on the iOS platform, and the Droid platform. One other thing I will say about Ustream. Getting video done is not hard in this day and age. You can get a camera, right? You could stream from your phone or from your iPad if you wanted to. But I think if Christians want to take video content and streaming seriously, you have to have professionals do it. Biola has a major here. It's a 4-year major. They've dumped millions of dollars into a professional production center over here because they understand that there's video and then there's video like what my friend Jordan back here is doing. There's an art to framing, there's an art to lighting, there's an art to how you tell the story. And what Ustream will let you do is actually contract through them with professional people to come in and produce your event. So if you're a ministry and you think, oh man, I have no idea where to get somebody with time and talent to get this thing to look right, well, contact Ustream. They'll set you up. They'll take care of, I mean, it depends what package you get, but if you go like full bore, they're going to have a media director there calling the shots. They're going to have cameramen there. They're going to bring in equipment. They're going to have professional sound, and it's really going to make your event stand out. I think it'll be well worth it. And again, if you tie that into the pay-per-view option, I mean, you could have an event people are talking about at a really good rate. The city. When we started GodBlogCon in 2006, the city was just a really young idea. And in 2007, when we moved it to Vegas to partner with the Blog World and New Media Expo, we brought out some people from Mars Hill Church, and they pitched us this concept. We talked about it while we were at the conference. It was a really cool idea when they pitched it. I think there were even some suggestions, refinements to the idea that were made here at the conference. And now the city actually exists, and it has existed for a couple of years. So basically what the city is it's a high-level community organization platform primarily for churches. And what that enables you to do is set a context in which conversations can happen within your organization. I think one of the biggest downfalls of everything from Facebook to Twitter to email threads and just general forums and most websites is that there's not a lot of context given to conversation, right? Like you could have a conversation about your Bible study in pretty much the same place you're going to have your conversation about what it means to be a fallen Christian and how God redeems those who are still struggling with sin, right? Like you can have really deep questions, but you don't want to just lob those into any general forum. Well, what the city does is it lets you actually organize the places where people have those conversations. You can have a community forum where the only people who are invited are people who are, say, in an eschatology program at your church. Or you can have a community forum where the high schoolers can LOL their heads off, right? Whatever, you set it up. That context is super useful, I think, for actually taking the conversation from, a place where it can happen to taking it to a level that actually continues to draw people in. There's probably going to be a lot of talk at this conference, and I have to apologize. I was working my other job, so I wasn't able to be here for the first part of it today. But there's probably been a lot of talk about content. How do you make it valuable, and how do you make it good? How do you get people to engage, and how do you take that initial spike of users you had and maintain it over the long term? Well, I think context is a huge source of it. I think one of the reasons that people go back to Facebook again and again and again is because that news feed is a context platform, a broad one, and I think too broad, but a context platform for the information, right? You got only the stuff you care about from your friends. You're not getting things that you're not getting spammed ads and all that other stuff, hopefully. And if Facebook wants to continue to be good, they're going to continue to keep the purity of that context. So that's what the city does. Here's something else that's really awesome about the city. Not only does it give you that organizational platform that's just tremendous, but it lets you track donations and giving. I think that online donations are one of the least utilized things when it comes to the web. You know, at Biola University, they've done a really awesome job at setting up alumni giving so that in a few easy steps, you can just sign your credit card up online and just start giving regularly. And I think that that's the way that the church should start thinking about it too, and definitely ministries. With the online giving and charitable donation module, which you can buy as an addition in the city community, what you can do is you can see who's a new giver, who's been giving regularly, who's increased their giving, right? If you have someone in your ministry who's increased their giving, you should probably go out and thank them. You should maybe do something nice for them. It's hard to tell when you're looking at an Excel spreadsheet and it's just, you know, row after row of numbers, right? I get it. I do operations for an escrow company, and if you want to talk about a lot of numbers, well, my God. So a lot of numbers going through there, and it can be hard to identify your trends. But the city lets you do it. The city lets you identify those trends. And not only you can see who's giving more, you can see who's laxed in their giving. And I don't say that because I want you to go out and be like, dude, where's your money? You know, you were giving a lot and now you're not giving and you need to step it up. But if you see a lack of giving in a specific ministry, that can be useful information. I mean, that could be a bellwether telling you, that's the canary saying, hey, there's something wrong over here in this ministry. Like, people aren't giving like they used to be. So you should go check that out. So that's the city. You can find them at www.onthecity.org. And their primary device is a computer, though I do believe that they are mobile friendly. Abukai is a company with a funny name, but does serious business. Abukai does quick expense reporting straight from your phone. I am really bad about keeping receipts. I'm just being honest. You know, I take a receipt from a dinner or whatever I'm at, buying something, I fold it in half, put it in my wallet, and sometimes it makes it into the Excel spreadsheet and noted into the QuickBooks account that it should be. Most of the time I find it later and I'm like, oh shoot. So if you're like me and you tend to, you know, kind of forget about those receipts, Abukai might just be your solution. Take your receipt, take a picture of it, hit the Process Expense Report button, and boom, a finished expense report. It'll do all sorts of wonderful things. It'll categorize the expense for you. It'll help you track and see like where you're spending your money, so you can follow those categories and say, oh, I'm spending a lot of money taking people out to eat here, or I'm not spending enough money taking people out to eat. It will send your information via CSV file, which is super useful, but it also works really well with programs like QuickBooks, which is what I personally use. I mean, that's pretty much it. And if you think, well, I just need to get a better habit, you know, I don't really see how paying money for Abukai is going to help me out, I invite you just to go to their website. They have an ROI calculator. You can see the return on investment. Just plug it in and see, all right, how much am I spending on average, and how many receipts am I scanning on average, and, you know, can Abukai save me money? They'll tell you. Their calculator is right there on their website. Their costs vary. You can go from free to, if you're more of an enterprise solution, you know, $99 per user and up. But again, for business reporting, especially for people, if you're a ministry that has a lot of people that are out on the field, I mean, just tremendously valuable. Mobile Salt. Mobile Salt is the solution for people who got really good at websites and then apps came along. What Mobile Salt will do is they'll take your website and they'll turn it into an app in sometimes under 24 hours. Now, prices vary based on how customized you want to, you know, get in there and make the app. You can get a very basic app that just, you know, does the bare bones of your site for a really reasonable rate. Or if you want to get in there and just, you know, start messing with buttons and making the user interaction deeper, maybe you want to even customize user interaction per iPhone or Android, you know, you might be able to get in there and do that. So Mobile Salt's a really good company that just is trying to help make affordable website conversion into an application. It's as simple as registering for an account, going to Mobile Salt, giving them your URL, and then watching them produce the stuff for you. And the nice thing is they work on a diversity of platforms. iOS, Blackberries, Windows, Windows Phone, and Android. So, I mean, and there was one platform I didn't put on here. They even work with Palm, if you've decided to rebel against all humankind and keep your Palm. So that's I mean, yeah, quick and easy solution. Get on the app world. Trello. Trello is a nimble project management tool. Have any of you guys ever used Trello? Oh, good. Well, glad to be able to introduce it to you. The Delight Group, my company, uses Trello for a number of things, but primarily we use it for project management, and here's how it works. You have what are called boards, which are just basically like the meta project world. So in this case, you could do Biola Digital as a board, and then you have cards. And so you would have things like media, right? And then a series of to-dos underneath that card. You would have speakers and all the logistics that have to do with that. And the nice thing about the board card setup is that you don't feel overwhelmed, right? Like, instead of having a mile-long to-do list on something like Wunderlist or having these subcategories, you know, you're visually transitioning between things, which gives you the ability to, you know, set things aside that you don't need to worry about until down the road. Now with Trello, you can build teams, you can notify people on your team about updates to the card, and the really exciting thing is you can actually put attachments on any of the cards, video attachments, PDFs, Word docs, whatever, so that you can, you know, be transferring and be like, hey, here's the you know, non-disclosure agreement for those video guys. Make sure that they all sign it and assign that to Jordan, right? Just, it's that simple, and it's really organized. It's also, my company went through a number of different project management platforms when we were starting and learning how to do app development. We landed on Trello because we felt like it was the cleanest. And so that's why I'm bringing it to your attention. You can find lots of other ones, but again, Trello is really great. And it's free. I mean, that's huge. So absolutely free. It is primarily a computer program. You can use it through, you know, the internet, but it is mobile friendly. Splashtop. If you've tried to load that website on your iPad and nothing works, Splashtop might be your answer. Splashtop is the answer for people who just wish they had properly transferred that video file to their iPad, that they could grab that file that they left on their computer desktop. It's like GoToMyPC, but it's cheaper by lots. And it's specifically designed for all of these devices that you see down here, and even the one you can't see because of the awesome formatting of this screen. So what it is it's an app that you put on your, you know, your iPad or your iPhone, or your Droid phone, or your Windows smartphone. And if once you register for an account, you have your app. You keep Splashtop open on your desktop, and you can do whatever is on your computer via your device, your mobile device. It works really well, surprisingly, for something that's as cheap as the base model is $4.99. I think the Pro model can get up to 16 or 17 bucks. For something that cheap, you would expect lag in video, you would expect lag in response. Splashtop really doesn't have it. It's highly rated in the app stores, in the iOS and Google Play Store. And people I know that have used it, they've never had a complaint. So a really awesome way to access your PC directly from your phone. Dropbox. Okay, now I assume everyone here has heard of Dropbox. Okay. Here's the thing about Dropbox, and here's why I brought it to your attention. Yeah, you can easily transfer files through the cloud. Yeah, it's really great for setting up, you know, folders and doing data management in group settings because you can share things. Here's what most people don't know about Dropbox. Dropbox is really, really secure. They use bank level security in protecting your data. And for ministries, that can be especially useful for people who are transferring sensitive documents from countries around the world that, frankly, may not be welcoming to Christianity. And so, you know, I know the email is always a concern. I know that obviously phone calls are a concern. Dropbox is a way to, you know, do those expense reports, maybe share those videos, that sort of thing, securely and globally. Now, cost varies, of course, based on your storage space and how much information you want, but you can get a 1 terabyte account, an enterprise solution for a pretty reasonable rate. It works with PC, Mac, iOS, Android, and BlackBerry. And in conjunction with the next thing I'm going to talk about, it may be the solution for having really solid and interesting conversation and document transfer globally. Documents to go. I don't know why Microsoft has seen fit to not take serious the mobile, iOS mobile world. As far as I'm concerned, they haven't done a good job with it. So what Documents to Go is it's that solution for all of us who are still using Excel and PowerPoint, Word, and different programs that are otherwise really streamlined and a part of everyday, professional communication. From your iPhone or from your iPad, you can edit documents. Not only can you open them and see them, right? Because a lot of things will do that for you. You can actually edit them. You can make changes to them. You can share them with other people. You can view docs that come in by way of email. But here's the really exciting thing. You can actually pull documents straight out of Dropbox. Now, if you've used Dropbox for the iPad before, you know that, yeah, it's great and you can see what documents are sitting in your iPad, but you may not be able to access them, right? Like, you got that PowerPoint file, but it's not really, it's kind of hard to access or do editing on. Well, what Documents to Go lets you do is actually save your stuff to the cloud, pull it down, edit it, save it back to the cloud, or pull it down, use it, and then send it back to the cloud. And that's really tremendous. You can find them at dataviz.com/DTG_home because they wanted to make it easy for you. DataViz is the name of the company that builds Documents to Go. Their premium version, which is what I recommend, is $16.99. Lemon. Lemon is a lot like Abukai. The difference is that it lets you actually do, it has more of a budgeting element to it. It's kind of like a combination of Abukai and Mint. Have you guys heard of Mint?
I use Mint.
Yeah. Yeah, Mint's great. Yeah, I use Mint as well. So it's kind of a combination of those two things. It lets you do budgeting and tracking those budgets and that sort of thing. And it's also really, really attractive. Now again, like I said earlier in the talk, in terms of actually, using technology, it's one thing to build an app and have your ministry's app. It's another thing to get people to feel comfortable using it. And so what Lemon has done is they spent a lot of time paying attention to the details and making data really easy to understand. So they're going to do the basic scan your receipt, put it in a category and all that, but then when you're actually viewing it, it's easy to sort through, it's easy to organize, you can filter your information by categories, and you can see very attractive graphic presentation of your data so that you can really understand it. And people who are sort of less comfortable with technology will feel comfortable using Lemon. So I give them a look. They work on the iOS platform, Android, and Windows devices, and they are at lemon.com. Okay, so the final app I want to talk about today is my own company's app, and it is called Mirth. This is actually the first time my company is releasing Mirth. We decided to launch it at Biola Digital, so congratulations, you guys are the first people hearing about it. Mirth is a white-labeled publication platform for ministries who don't just want their website turned into an app, but they actually want to develop an app that was, from the very launch of it, designed to be an app, designed with app user integration in mind. What we do is we let ministries publish their magazines, their journals, maybe even their webazine to our application. Now, the way we've set it up is we're designing templates that are highly customizable. You can have, you can choose how big a feature image you want. You can choose where you want your headlines. You can choose how the content is based on our template selection. We also incorporate rich media. So it's not just text, it's also audio, it's video, it's it's text, it's infographics, any number of things like that. And you can see more of what I'm talking about here on the card I provided for you. Social media integration. So there's social media integration, and then there's social media integration that makes sense. And that's what the latter is definitely what we're going for. And the difference between the two is that, it's one thing just to have like a Twitter button. It's another thing to make tweeting a thing really easy. And so with Mirth, we've set it up so that it's very easy to get to your tweet, to get to your Facebook account, your Twitter account, and just send out your message and share what you're talking about. And we've worked really hard to try and provide people with a context for where that communication is coming from. So it's not just like someone's, waxing philosophic, but you can see they're waxing philosophic based on your ministry's content, your ministry's app. It'll help you generate more sales for the app. It'll also take your content and introduce it to a social conversation, which is where I think it gains a whole nother level of value. One, if someone introduces your content to a social conversation, they're taking ownership of it, right? Because they're publicly acknowledging that they support whatever's being said, that it shaped them in some way, and that they support the cause. But something else that happens that causes them to take ownership of it is oftentimes people will respond. And when somebody responds either positively or negatively, there's sort of an extra level of, yeah, and this, or no, I don't think you said that right. Here, let me defend this thing that I've now interacted with, this idea that this company has given me that I'm now taking ownership of and saying, yeah, I agree with that. The reason we've designed Mirth, the reason we set about it, is because we felt like, I don't know if you knew this, but the average app costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 to develop. I mean, really what you're talking about is a whole software game or platform of some kind. You're creating a world from nothing, and that costs money. It's developers, it's maintenance, it's dealing with problems with iTunes or with Google Droid's platform. And if you've ever worked with Droid, then just take it from me, there's 1,000 things that can go wrong on Droid. And then they do. So all of that hassle is taken care of for you. What we've done is we brought together a really solid development team of people who are most of our team is Christian, and they care a lot about, first and foremost, they care about really quality products, and they also care about helping Christians do good work. And so with Mirth, which we've playfully given the subtitle of The Joy of Mobile Publishing, what we've tried to do is we've tried to make that experience really enjoyable so that the ministries can get an app for a very affordable rate, but it's a premium quality product. And the way we give a premium quality product to people at an affordable rate is we build the structure and then we let people to put on the facade, if that makes sense. So Mirth, you can find it at mirthapp.net. Soon you'll also be able to find it just by going to my company's website, thedelightgroup.com. And we'll have it there. And it's not yet on the market, but it will be very, very soon. So if you want to learn more, go to mirthapp.net. You can sign up for an email. We'll notify you when it comes out. We'll notify you of updates and that sort of thing. And then if you're interested in even being a partner with us and giving us feedback, we'll give you a discounted rate on the first iteration of Mirth app, and we'd love to hear your feedback, love to hear your insight. So that's the pitch. That also concludes all of the apps that I have brought to the table for today. I've set aside about 45 minutes of the talk to open up the conversation to you guys, and here's why. When Dave Bourgeois originally approached me and asked me to do this talk, I said to him, I said, okay, well, I can do ministry apps, but like, what do ministries need? I mean, what do you want me to focus on? And I think I came up with a pretty comprehensive list, but I think you'll notice that it really tends toward doing the business of ministry. And that was just because I figured most of you in here were probably in the business of ministry as much as you were in ministry itself, in dealing with people on a face-to-face level, interpersonal communication. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to just sort of lead a conversation wherein we talk about what ministries are doing to use mobile and where you guys think all of this is going, where you think the future of mobile lies for ministry opportunity. So I was hoping to have a marker. Unfortunately, I don't have one for this session, so you're going to have to take good notes. but I will now open up the floor by asking this first question, and that is, what, in your opinion, is the most overlooked opportunity with regards to mobile? Ministry opportunity with regards to mobile. So, open it up. Like mobile to mobile?
Like mobile to mobile, yeah.
Do you think there's anything outside of ministry that does the mobile to mobile thing well?
Probably not real well, but I guess there's a couple meetings that are out there that do it.
Yeah, this isn't ministry, but draw something, because you
Oh,
play the
interesting.
drawing game, but you can also tap and put a little comment about, that was bad, you know. I play draw something with my friends all day long. I mean, it's mobile to mobile, not ministry, but it engages me to talk to my friends to play a game. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, tons of that.
Do you think a draw something would?
Yeah, that's kind of the idea approach I was thinking. I know right now a lot of the apps are kind of designed for location based. Like you can find out, what interest you have and who, in a 30-mile radius has those same interests, and you kind of go link up that way. I think there's some apps that do that, but I don't know if they've done them really well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you put a kind of a Christian context on that.
Is there some sort of like Christian around me? You know what around me is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does everyone know what around me is? Around me is an application you pull up on your phone and you're like, what's around me? And it will tell you restaurants, entertainment venues, that sort of thing.
Yeah. But what would it be looking for?
That's a good question.
What's the results? I mean, if you go to a church, you're going to a church. If you're on vacation, okay, I could see you looking for maybe a church to go to because it's Sunday and you're out camping or something like that. But outside of that, maybe like Christian bookstore, well, those are far and few between at this point now.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are just downloading apps and downloading books. I don't know, it's really difficult. I mean, maybe it'd be landmarks or something like that that are Christian-based landmarks. I'm just trying to think of what location-based thing would work for. Like I think Foursquare and Gowalla or something similar to that, but to kind of go to you, what would you? I mean, maybe it's more of a check-in process, depending where you go, but.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've wondered is whether or not it would make sense for churches to host more public events. In medieval Europe, the cathedral was at the center of a town, and it was purposefully open and very, very open. If you guys have ever been to a cathedral, I mean, they're very, very open in the middle because they hosted things like the farmer's market, or big events in the town. And I wonder if the church hasn't gotten away from some of that, and if things like Around Me, like a Christian version of Around Me, wouldn't help open up Christians to, dropping into another church, participating in some event, doing public Bible studies. I mean, is that even possible, you think?
Yeah, I think for my church anyway, you'd spend quite a long time trying to convince people that they ought to have one, much less have a mobile app that would support it. There's a church in my area that the other day had a job fair out in their parking lot on a Saturday, well publicized, and that's meeting the need of the community. People, they had a lot of companies there looking to hire. So something like that could then be used, but you'd have to first have the culture of people doing that.
Sounds like more of a local events calendar that could just be anything.
So don't make it like explicitly Christian.
Could also be Christian as well, yeah. And with that, you could take, for instance, some type of organization that needs help, and they can list on there. It's almost like a job board, but for volunteers.
Interesting. So wait, can you say a little bit more? Like, what would that look like? If you were sitting down and pitching this idea to my company, what would it look like?
Well, it'd be location-based, and it's time-based because it's like a calendar. It's almost like the LA Weekly type of thing, or OC Weekly, where here's everything that's happening in the area for this week or this month. But there's all of the volunteering opportunities that are available, in the area. And here's the churches that are sponsoring it, and just kind of bringing everything together that way.
Actually, the United Methodist Church has a really good part of their website. I haven't looked on it for years. It was like maybe 5 years ago when they were first they did their website with their global church. And they had a part where they could have volunteers, and like if you wanted to go volunteer in New Orleans, they started back then trying to connect people and connect up the volunteering opportunities with wherever you were going on vacation. Now, I don't know if they've taken it mobile yet, but I was really impressed when I looked at it when they were first launching it. The idea was similar.
So then with the church, so let's assume that I needed help. Would I go to United Methodist Church? Or like, how would I get my...
I'm not exactly sure. I just remembered going, that is really cool, because if I'm going on vacation somewhere and I have an extra day, like I'm going to Florida next month and I have an extra day, and if I wanted to serve the Lord there, it'd be cool to be able to go somewhere and go, where can I serve the Lord where I am?
It sounds like a Jesus-based Christian-based Craigslist. But with the calendar based on top of it.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Isn't that cool?
A Christian-based Angie's List?
Yeah.
Call it Peter's List.
Peter's List, yeah, there you go.
You might have to have like a questionnaire to find out if they're real Christians. Whatever your definition of real
Check
What's great about something like that is it ties into all these other things too. So, for instance, you could tie in Yelp into it. You could tie in Instagram into it. So while you're doing the thing, you can be taking photos
and send it back to your donors.
Right. There's all sorts of different services that are out there that are API based that you can tie into, pull in and out of to tie all this together.
So like,
You also use a mobile donation.
Oh yeah.
If you want to donate to a certain project, you can do that.
That'd be great.
It might be cool, just as I'm brainstorming with this idea, is that when a speaker or a band goes into an area to do one gig, to find out, for churches to be able to find out who's passing through my town that I could get on the cheap because they've already been flown here. So that it would maximize ministry for the person who's traveling and maybe make it more affordable for the smaller churches that can't fly in great speakers.
Well, now, wouldn't some of these video platforms kind of solve that problem of not having a speaker that you can afford?
They might. I'm still thinking it all through and the implications.
Sure, but there's always that kind of good feeling of
Shaking hands.
watching the person live there.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you guys say that, because at the, I think it was a 2007 conference, when we were watching the transition from blogs to social kind of really take off, one of the big ideas was that you could do online church just as effectively as in-person church, and that you could live stream. Live streaming was like all the rage at that conference. And that's the big question, right? Like, does lifechurch.tv, sorry, Siri wants to say something right now. Does lifechurch.tv and those sorts of things, does it replace that, that real life interaction?
No, because you can't eat together.
Huh.
No, I'm serious. Jesus ate with people. Didn't Jesus say, behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if you open the door, I will come in and sup with you? I think there's something about having a meal with brothers and that you'll never lose, so that churches don't have to be afraid.
But I mean, on the flip side of that coin, isn't there something about having that ability to reach out to people who you might not have in your community?
It's great. Yeah, I think both, but a lot of churches, when I talk to people about, you know, new trends, I'll see the church leaders like get afraid. And I know what they're thinking. Well, this is going to make people not come to my sermon, because if my sermon is, if they can get so-and-so, you know, streaming, why would they, you know, and you see that going through their head, and I don't think that's ever going to substitute. It will only enrich.
Interesting.
In my church, it's about 900 members. There are 3 pastors, and I have restructured our hospitality ministry, and we could have a dozen or more new people walk in every week. And we have teams that will invite those visitors to a meal that particular day. But we're having trouble. What my practical need is having a way to track those people as they come in the door, so that our simulation teams can introduce them to different people, and they can sit down with them, you know, eat with them, so that they develop a comfort level. But a lot of people are adverse about putting their name down on the list, of, you know, getting that information. So we have to get it another way, a much more informal way. And so we think we've got that method, but we still don't have a way to capture that data that is so important to keep contact with them, to see how many weeks are there, who they are connecting with. And so that is a very practical need. I don't know if there's a software or program that can help us do that. That would be very important. I think a practical need, because people are not just coming to hear a sermon, they're also coming for fellowship. And that is something that we want to capture and emphasize. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think many pastors.
It's quite the challenge, though, because
it is. Yeah.
You're you know, typically you're in church and you say, well, okay, fill out the information form and we'll get in contact with you, or you know, fill this out when you make your tithing and that sort of thing.
And if they do fill out a card, I mean, I have a stack of cards, sure, you know, but that doesn't do me much good. We need to have some kind of media contact with them, or you know, something that would be very easily done. Not sending out a little note, "We're so happy you came with us last week." You know, something much more in tune with the digital age that we're in.
Children's ministry has things like that, but it still is, you're still swiping a card. Like at our church, you come up, you swipe the thing, and your kids are automatically checked in.
Right.
And that's the whole retrieval, and we're not giving them to anybody that doesn't belong to them. But there's a sense of them, that data has been completely digitized. If some, you know, if there was an incentive, you know, swipe it, you get a free cup of coffee, you know, or a free water bottle. You know, I don't know what the. But we still got to entice somebody to do it. And, you know.
Yeah, but we got to get up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
We have people that are liking the idea that they can come into a large church and sit back and enjoy it and make an assessment. Do I want to come back?
Sure. Yeah.
We want to have some influence over that.
You know, Facebook has recently launched a really interesting program. It's their deals program. Have you guys seen that? Yeah. So basically, what it does is you have your page, right? Your church's page, and you can offer deals for people who check in. Checking in is easy, and if your church incentivizes the check-in, I mean, that might be one way to solve the problem. So that you could just go to your page and you can actually see all the people. It's called the friend activity, but you can see all the people who have checked in, and you know, just say, hey, if you're a first-time visitor, check in on Facebook, and we'll give you a coupon code for free coffee or something like that.
For eternal salvation.
Or eternal salvation, the indulgences of Facebook. Yeah. Salvation, there's an app for that.
I think the only thing is with that is that you're limiting it to a certain demographic and a certain what you would call it, a status or a type of people that can afford those types of items.
Right.
So, the feature phone types wouldn't be able to check in. It's just not something that they're able to do.
Yeah, the only, I mean, that's a good point. And that's the challenge too, is we're in this transition period, like data plans aren't universal yet. They will be, because in a place where you can take Skype on your iPhone, it just, charging by minutes makes less and less sense. I use Skype for a lot of my phone conversations. But yeah, I mean, you could maybe combine it then with Facebook check-in, text, or fill out the card, and if people text, there are services that will do an auto text back. They're also pretty affordable. I didn't cover any of them because I was focused on apps. But yeah, there are services you can do, and it would text back a code. I mean, here too, Church of 900, do you have anyone in your church who owns a small coffee shop in the area?
We may, I don't know. It's,
Other businesses besides
oh yeah.
coffee.
There are other businesses.
Sure.
Subway, many medical.
Subway, well, the Subway might be a good route, because what I was thinking is, if the business owner would be willing to, you could try and establish a relationship with them where they give a discount to newcomers, and then when they come up with the code, right? Jesus saves. I don't know what the code would be. They can get like a reward. They get their sandwich cheaper, but then you have your restaurant guy giving them a package, like a church package or something. So to take that interaction to the next level. I don't want to be like 2 Court of Gentiles here. No, I don't want Jesus coming over and flipping the Subway table. But
Jesus saves, and so can you.
Yeah, that's right. But you see what I'm saying? Like a text, or I mean, short of us having like implanted a thing in our head that scans every time we walk through the church door, which is like 10 kinds of demonic.
Facial recognition cameras. I mean, that's about what
Yeah.
I think a combination of this stuff works pretty well. I mean, his idea is great because a lot of people have kids, but that doesn't mean everyone has kids.
Right.
Why do you think you might try to incentivize the adults?
Oh yeah, it's great because I think a combination works
Yeah,
works
or
well.
like,
Same like I was saying with not everyone has a cell phone that has all these apps and everything. Well, they all have text messaging, or at least a majority of them do.
Right.
And so you can get them involved in that. And then the people that don't have any of those, or they're adverse to all of those, then you get them when they go to Bible study.
Or they fill out the card.
Or they fill out the card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a combination of it.
What in your mind is the ideal solution? Like, let's just forget what exists. What in your mind would be perfect? Do you have something?
Something, a means to not necessarily gather the information, but to record the information and bring the different pieces of data gathered by different people together on a particular walk-in, and then have that ongoing. I'd like to be able to track these individuals for about a year. The assimilation team is built with that concept of, we're not just going to forget you. When you walk in the door, we take you seriously. You're here for a good reason, and we like to know what that reason would be, and be able to track this person over time.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not just a matter of collecting the data and knowing that Susie walked in the door.
Right.
You want to know if someone on your team has followed up with Susie, if Susie's come 2 or 3 times, if Susie enrolled in a, yeah.
That's what the city does.
I think the city actually does a lot of that.
Really?
Yeah. I've not personally used the city. I've just talked with people who developed it and have used the city. I would give them a call, give their salespeople a call, because when they were originally pitching the concept, that was one of the big things it was intended to do. It was intended to help you track kind of what your members are up to and that sort of thing. Yeah, but getting those initial connections, I think, will have to involve something like a texting service or Facebook like. And of course, the Facebook like, if you can get them to check in and then eventually like your church, then you have you have profile information all over the place, So you know their age, their frequency of, you know how many people are visiting, what stories they're liking, and all that kind of stuff.
I think we're not too far off from
Right.
You know, some people can say it's 5 years, 10 years from now, whatever, but it's soon that we're going to be in an age where you just don't have a non-smartphone. All phones will be considered smartphones. And I even read this week that one analyst predicts by 2020, Facebook will be no more because we're in a different age, different time. Something else will be the Facebook of the age. And so I think one thing when we think about it, it'd be nice to solve a problem now, but technology changes so quickly. So kind of like what you said a few minutes ago, what would be something that we want to have in our churches or our ministries, because we're not too far off from having that technology available to us.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the whole mutability of technology is definitely an obstacle. That's why I think, I don't know. So I do operations, like I said. So I have two companies, in case you guys aren't thoroughly confused right now. I have an app development company, which is just like my total passion project. I love it, and it pays everybody else. And then I have an escrow company I work for, also a really great company. Basically what we're doing is we're taking escrow, which if you guys have ever closed escrow on a house, you know there's about 1 billion sheets of paper you have to sign. And there's paper exchanged everywhere, and we're saying, okay, hey, we live in an age of computers, so like you can email this and you could sign digitally. And so we're greening up the whole escrow process by going virtually paperless, and I'm the operations guy there. Really super great company, really great opportunity. But what this means is that we're tracking, we have, instead of people coming in the door for church, we have our loan officers and realtors. How often are they bringing us escrows? How often are they closing those escrows versus say canceling those escrows? What's the average value of the escrow? What are we doing to build up the relationships and make sure we're taking care of our VIPs and all that kind of stuff? We've gone through a number of content management systems. We're looking at Work, etc. now, but we're currently using Batchbook. We use Salesforce and different things like that. But more to your point, the thing we've kind of come down to with regards to that is there are certain fundamentals that will never change no matter how the technology changes. And that is, the people and the process and the relationships. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that whatever system we set up now gets those fundamentals right so that we have a little bit more long-term solution, even if the technology changes. Where we're looking is we're looking into the cloud. Because for us, keeping the data in the cloud lets us change computers and upgrade. It lets us update our own databases, no problem. The cloud will theoretically always be accessible by whatever the thing is that you're, if another iPad gets invented, it'll probably interact with the cloud. So maybe doing some sort of cloud-based solution for you guys would be something to look into. I don't know, what do you guys think?
There's also something that I just remembered, something called Fellowship One. It's a church management software that I know it tracks donations and that kind of thing. They might also have something like that, Fellowship One.
I think nearly all church management systems do something like that, whether it's Arena or Shelby or Fellowship One.
It's pretty much just a CRM, just contact relationship management.
Have you met Drew Goodmanson? Either of you? Okay. Has anyone here met Drew? Yeah. Okay. Drew Goodmanson is here at the conference. He's a tall guy, blonde, and I think he has a couple of his teammates. Drew works for a San Diego-based company called Monk Development. Drew's actually a pastor, in addition to owning a development company. And he and his company have built a series of CRMs. I think one of them is called Ecclesia 360. If you can, track Drew down. He can probably actually help you really narrow in, and yeah. In fact, I recommend Monk Development to everyone. So, great company, really good team of people, and they make quality products. Okay, so if we can, I would like to go back to the conversation we were having about making maybe ministry more location-based. You guys work at a church. Does anyone else work for a church? You do? What are you guys doing and utilizing, you know, mobile media for at this point?
Right now, we're not doing much that specifically targets mobile. You know, most of our, well, all of our sermons are online. David Jeremiah is the pastor, so.
Oh, you're in San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, all of our stuff is on the web. You know, it's accessible via the phone, but it's not specifically developed with the phone in mind. It's just, here's our website, and you can access it via your phone if you want to. So we're looking to expand and intentionally target mobile devices a little more than we're doing.
What do you hope to do when you say target mobile devices? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, you know, I'm hoping to get some answers for that in this conference here. You know, obviously putting our sermons online, you know, explore the rationale between an app versus just a mobile website. You know, things like that. You know, we're not real sure. We're in the early stages of looking at that.
Okay. I have a theory about apps versus being on phones, tablets, and the computer. Are you interested in hearing it really quickly? All right. So when we design for the Delight Group, we recognize that there's a difference between this guy and the iPad and the computer. And the biggest differences are that you're talking about the amount of content that feels appropriate to consume, I think. Because really we're just talking about screens, right, and screen sizes ultimately. This is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is nearly as powerful as my computer for the sorts of things that most ministries want to do. So what we say is this: when we develop an app for the iPhone, it's the slimmest version of our content that we can provide that gives you like the core. So articles, video, and infographics, that sort of thing. When we develop for the iPad, because there's more visual real estate, we go for like that second level of content, somewhere between a website and an iPhone. And for us, what that means is, say, not only can you now, like I'm going to give an example to illustrate, not only can you now provide the content, right? Like let's say you have David Jeremiah's sermon on one side, and you got the video and maybe a text copy so that people can read it as he's going along, but then now we would integrate a notes section, because it's not that difficult to take notes on the iPad. I mean, you two guys have the keyboards right there. I have one of those as well. And so taking notes on the iPad is really useful. Doing that on the phone, I mean, you just lose, right? You lose, the video would be like this big. And so we treat the iPad as something to do like sort of second level interaction, but not something where you'd want to do serious work. I once heard the iPad described as lean back technology, and I think that's a very apt description. The idea being that when you're on your laptop, you're doing this, you know, you're thinking, you're doing the hard work, you're probably typing, you know, 90 words a minute. You're like, this is where the serious work happens if you're doing video editing. Like that's heavy resource work. When you're doing the iPad, you're leaning back, you're consuming an article, you're looking at images, you know, you're doing the sort of thing that you wanted to do with a laptop, but you couldn't comfortably do because a laptop's kind of cumbersome and it burns your lap after a while. And so we take that same approach then with regards to you know, developing for the iPad. If we were to do that note section I was talking about just a second ago, it wouldn't be like rigorous, extensive note-taking. We wouldn't give people like a full-scale Word suite application in that notes. We would give them some basics, bullet points, some basic formatting tools, just something to, you know, sort of track their thoughts. But it would be like sticky note more than it would be extensive, you know, like essay. Does that make sense, the distinction? And then of course when we develop intending people to use web tools, then it's just like the full suite, right? Like you let people interact, you have your notes, you have your video, you got your playback, you can maybe even like stop and like highlight sections of a video, pull it out, edit it, I don't know, whatever, loop it, send a 30-second shot to Facebook. And so for you guys, then, if I can be so bold as to make a suggestion, if you're gonna go with mobile, think about just like what's the core, you know, of the kind of stuff you're sending out. People don't want to do too much with this, I don't think. I think that stands contrary to a lot of expectations and kind of the popular wisdom. But there's a reason that Angry Birds sells in the tens of millions, and Call of Duty does well, but not nearly as well as Angry Birds. And I think it's because Call of Duty is just too much. It's just too much for this device. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be like, I just don't want to be doing all the action. I just want to flick a bird. I didn't say flip a bird. I just want to flick a bird across a thing, And I think that that's the danger that a lot of ministries and just companies in general, when they're putting their stuff on the iPhone, they can fall into that trap of thinking, okay, we have to get everything we had on our website, we have to get it on an iPhone. So, yeah. I mean, oh yeah, jump in.
I just kind of had a kind of question that a little bit unrelated, but it sparked it when you were talking about why you would do different things at different level, iPhone, iPad. In the world of mobile, hearing a lot about, apps are dead, it's all about mobile websites, no apps will never die. It's like, when would, in your thinking, when would an app be the right solution, and when would a mobile website be the right solution? Obviously, it depends on what you're doing, obviously, but do you have any kind of guiding principles about that, I guess?
Yeah. In general, the guiding principle there is if you want people, if your content is the kind people have to be plugged in to really appreciate, I think a mobile website is valuable. That's one, or a mobile app, I'm sorry, basically taking a site and putting it on your phone. That's what you're talking about, basically?
Yeah, like a mobile website versus a mobile app. It's a download, you buy it in the App Store, 99 cents, and it does certain things. But a lot of people say, no, you don't need an app anymore. Let's just do, apps are dead, we ought to just do mobile websites.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there's
Yeah, if people need to be plugged in to appreciate your content, then I think a mobile website is a good way to go. Also, frankly, a mobile website can be cheaper and it can be super flexible. When we're developing for the iPhone, the standards are different than developing for Droid. To illustrate, when we submit an app to the iTunes Store, it takes us about a week to get the app through the entire approval process because they test it on every device. We do too, but they test it to make sure that everything's working and that it meets all their standards. It takes us 3 hours to get it into the Google Play Store. And that's because Google is more of a responsive company. Their attitude is, if it breaks, then we'll deal with it. It's like we had our featured Mirthright is a political app called ThinkRight, and we had ThinkRight in the store for I think a week or two, and then we got this email from Google, and they're like, hey, yeah, we kind of took a look at your thing, and it's great, but you could really improve it here. Well, that's awesome, but my thing has already sold, hundreds of apps in your store. And so when you're developing then for the different platforms, there are different things you have to think about. Now with web app, that's not the case. You don't have to worry about, say, Flash compatibility nearly as much. I mean, to a degree you do, but scalability is easier to manage. The coding is easier to manage because you're just doing it in one language, probably HTML5. But I would say one disadvantage it has is that if you're not in the Google Store and you're not in the iTunes Store, it's harder to get your thing recognized because now you have to market your website. I mean, the thing that Apple did really well was they brought this huge community to you, and they feature things periodically. Like when ThinkRight went out, it was a top 10 reference app in the first day, and that helped to get us more sales. We wouldn't have had that kind of publicity boost were it not for the iTunes Store having existed. Now one reason I would tend toward an app over the web app thing is because, one, just design-wise, there are different expectations of apps depending on the device you're using. So for example, an Android person is more accustomed to having their key buttons on the top. Don't know if you guys ever thought about that. But sort of the key navigation buttons are at the top. And also the way Android apps are generally designed, you have your menus that are just you sort of have like a dashboard, because that's how Droid is developed. You have that dashboard that you kind of go to, and then from there you navigate out. Whereas with the iPhone, you just have your home screen, but it's just a list of apps, right? And so with the iPhone, people are more accustomed to just going straight to a specific menu or diving straight into whatever the app is designed to do. They're less accustomed to having that dashboard option confront them first. Also, they're more used to having their buttons on the bottom near the home key. So if you're doing a web app, you don't necessarily design for that. You just do one platform, and it doesn't feel as native. Also, with an app, the thing to think about is that you don't always have internet connectivity. If you're traveling in subway, people on a subway, right? My co-founder is out in DC. He takes the subway all the time. He loses internet connectivity. If you have people that are supposed to be reading and watching video, and it's not sort of natively stored on the app, well, they're going to lose that, and they're going to have to wait, and it can be a frustrating experience. So if people need to be connected, like if you're okay with them being connected, then that's great. If you would rather them have that ability to open up your stuff and access it all the time, then I would seriously consider going to just a straight up app. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm just curious about kind of what the trends are in creating apps for children within the Christian ministry realm.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah.
Anybody knows? I'm just curious.
Does anyone know, just out of curiosity?
I'm learning because that's what a company I'm working with now has an established, like a 32-page book that's trying to move it on to digital platform. We're thinking about an app trying to get the information, but there's not a lot from because I've been researching it for like about 3 weeks now, just buying a ton of Christian apps for kids, and they're not great. Is the quick version of my assessment is that they're very text heavy. They're not very, I think it's a huge opportunity. That's where all my focus is at. I don't think there's a lot out there.
Yeah, I bought a couple different story apps. One in particular that was $30, just to try it out and see if it's even worth it. I was like, well, $30 has to have something in it. Yeah, it did.
Actually,
and to top it off, the video that it had on there, it was set up so that it had closed captioning in like 500 different languages.
Right.
But for it to be that big, I mean, it's like a 600 meg download for this thing.
Right.
All it was video, and the video had the people talking, but my daughter is 6. I mean, she can read, but she can't read things just flying across the screen that fast.
Right.
And it missed the mark big time because she wasn't able to read, to actually, listen to it and hear the stories. I had to sit there and read it, which is fine, but it's just
Well, and then you compare that to like Morris Les Moore's.
Oh, which is beautiful.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is absolutely a beautiful.
What is this?
Have you seen it? Oh, it's Morris Les Moore's.
Yeah, it's about a guy who writes or reads books and writes books.
It's you just have to experience it.
I have it if you want to check it out.
Yeah, I would love to.
You see that, and that is beautiful and fabulous and fantastic and draws you in, and you think, oh, I wish something Christian would be half as good
And
as
it's
that.
not. It's the 1980s videos that are being played, like the style videos. And I'm just like,
the hair in the background. Yeah.
It just wasn't.
Or Thief in the Night.
But that's exactly where the company I'm working with is 100% at, is kids. Kids in the digital medium, from a Christian standpoint, particularly evangelism.
Well, if I can, does anyone else want to weigh in on this, just out of curiosity?
Well, it sounds like the market's wide open.
Yeah, we haven't spent a lot of time in the Christian side. If you don't mind, again, I'll show you another app. This is an app in demo. We have just finished the first round of an app. It's called Very, Very Big Feelings, and it was done by I believe a child psychologist.
Now, is this the one your company did?
Yeah, this is another one. We're kind of working on a number of projects right now. So the basic premise of building this children's app was that we wanted to keep it really simple and colorful and leave lots of room for kids to slap the screen, because that's what they're going to do. That's how a kid interacts, is they do a lot of this. And so the idea of this book is that we help children come to understand that they have these feelings, and that sometimes when those feelings sort of boil up and stuff happens, that it's okay, but they have to know how to respond.
Everyone has feelings.
We make it really easy for the child to just go page by page. It's almost Dr. Seuss-like. You know, when you think about how Dr. Seuss laid out his pages, lots of pictures, just strong graphical elements, followed by a line or two of text. And because sometimes kids can't read the text, we accompany it with a word, or with a voice, excuse me, a spoken word.
Feelings are a good thing. Sometimes our feelings get big. Sometimes our feelings get very big. Sometimes our feelings get very, very big.
Now you'll notice we didn't do the standard page turn, which is something you're used to seeing with in the iOS world. And the reason why we didn't do that was because we felt it would be more fun if the picture slid, as opposed to just like looking like a book. It's not a book. It's something other than a book.
Sometimes when our feelings are very, very big, we do things. And grown-ups may get upset. When your feelings are very, very big, you need grown-ups to help you.
So this is basically a book.
Mommy or daddy can comfort you.
Yeah, but here I'll show you. I'm getting to.
Mommy, daddy, or other grown-ups can play with you.
Okay, this screen is where it gets interesting and becomes iPad-y. All right, because in a book, it's a fixed story. You go slide by slide by slide or page by page, and you go from beginning to end. But with the iPad, you can actually do a sort of choose your own adventure thing, or you can actually have a responsive attitude to it. So here now we've discussed feelings in the context of this story. And kids are like, okay, I've had feelings and I think I get it, but what are my feelings? Like, what is this thing that I can't really express? And we have a series of stones laid around a pond set in the sort of serene environment of the ducks, right? You can hear the ducks, you hear the water. You've put yourself in this place, and you're immersed in the world of the story, and you think, okay, I think I'm feeling abandoned.
Abandoned.
And now we change the story, right? Now it's like, it's more comforting, because if you're feeling abandoned, I mean, that's a hard place to be, yeah.
A kid, I don't think, how would they know the word abandoned? Is there some image that makes the kid sees a kid looking alone, or is it just the word?
Right now in version 1, it's just the word. And there's someone explaining the feeling. But in future versions, yeah, trying to like bring up that sense of what does it mean to be overwhelmed? Too many things are going on, right? Like a very childlike explanation of being overwhelmed.
The definition of it is all that does. Is,
yeah.
Is affirm what they're feeling.
Yeah.
On an app like this, when you say interactive, to make it interactive, is there a way that people can upload some of their content to customize it, to add their kid's name?
I have some great apps where my daughter holds her phone, or holds the iPad in front of her face, and it takes a picture of her, and it puts her picture in the story.
Yes,
so as she goes around from thing to thing,
that's super cool.
Photos in there.
Yeah, I need to talk to you.
And I have like 30 of them. I mean, there's just
But none in the Christian market.
No.
Of course.
There's actually.
It's totally true though, because I mean that's why I was like, I wouldn't mind, that's why I spent $30 on that one just to try it out. And I'm like, oh, it has to have something. Nope, it's just a big video that was in the dollar section.
Let me show you one other app that was featured in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
The child was left abandoned.
Yeah, the child's alone.
Overwhelmed and abandoned.
The way it ends is that actually when the child identifies their emotion, there's a guide for parents and professionals about how to work with children that have specific emotional feelings they don't know how to deal with.
Coping skills, something that's not taught in school.
Right. Yeah, and for parents it can sometimes be a really overwhelming thing to have to try and respond to your child's feelings, especially if you don't even know what they are. So that's what the app helps to do.
I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. There's another app. I believe it's called Koya. Have you guys heard about this? There was a TED Talk done on it.
Yes, I saw that. It's amazing. Oh, I would love to do that.
So here's okay. This is so awesome. Can you all see this?
Amazing.
So what it is there's a hand, and the 5 points of the hand are here, your 5 fingers. And so what you do is you unlock it. Scans your hand.
It's KY. How do you spell
I think it'll say in a second. I can't remember. It's Indian. The developer was Indian. Is Indian. And so what you do is you put your name in, and then you go through the story, and you're a character in the story. And it does all sorts of things, like there's one point where you have to go outside and move leaves around, and so you do that by blowing into the microphone, right? Just different things like that. So I think you raised a really good question with regards to children's stories. I mean, that's a tremendous opportunity, and I think, you know, what you need to look at there is thinking about how we're interacting with the technology, how we're using it, and, you know, don't just think of it as this sort of like data input tool, but have fun with it, you know. So, and with that, yeah, go ahead.
What was the spelling of that app again?
K-H-O-Y-A.
Yeah, Koya. Hey, thanks everyone for your time. Hope you enjoy Biola Digital. Yeah, thank you.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.